Hello, welcome back to the Dumb Bitch Book Club. I'm Chandler.
And I'm Hayden.
And today we're going to be talking about A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas.
Yay.
I am just so fucking thrilled to be able to talk about this book. I read this back in the end of January, shortly after we had finished A Court of... What the fuck's the first one called?
Thorns and
Roses. And you know what? I was just feeling it. I was feeling that, like, Rhys-Farah connection, and I felt like I
needed
at the
time? Or...
At the time, yeah, and I just needed to dive in. And I'm not saying I regret being excited, but it definitely didn't live up to my previous enjoyment, which was a little disappointing to me.
Do you like this one or the first one more?
This one, for sure.
Like, you were looking forward to it for that reason. Like, you were like, I know it's better than the first book.
Well, yeah. And I knew who she got with in the second book. So for me, it was like, okay, finally we get to get there. But I didn't realize how fucking slow burn this book was. I just seem to remember the first 30% them getting together, but that's just not the case. And first part of this book really fucking dragged. I don't know how you felt.
I mean, I spoke to you about this earlier today because I was reading this book up until a couple hours ago.
Yeah, as he does. Wait until the last possible second.
You know, I like to keep things fresh, you know?
Yeah.
It's all top of mind right now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I spoke to you about this earlier that I felt like at least 50% of this book could have not existed and it still have been the same book. I mean, I thought the whole thing was kind of slow burn.
I think that's a fair assessment. I do think the beginning, like, angsty Farah bullshit could have been cut down considerably with the same effect.
The slow burn of high burn.
Okay. Moving right along, I guess we could just dive into this motherfucking plot. I am excited to start and just talk about all the good things.
Good things?
I
think you can see where I'm headed here today.
It wasn't that bad.
I would agree with you, like, I enjoyed it more than the first, kind of. The only thing was that it was definitely much more of a chore than the first book because of how long it was. It took more work to get there. If it would have been close to the same length as the first book, then, like, 100% yes, this would have been a better book.
Yo, you want to cut it out? Peppy, get your ass over here. We'll show everybody the culprit. This bastard. No respect for the pod. Alright, you want to go sit over there?
Oh, Jesus. I'm afraid he's gonna attack. Oh my god, he's a rat.
I obviously took notes back in the day for this. It's been a couple of months. And the first thing that I had is that Farah just starts out mad depressed with a big old dose of PTSD from what happened under the mountain. And that I really liked it because I felt like one of your complaints at the end of the last book was that it was just all kind of like sunshine and roses.
No, I complained that she was, the whole time that she was poor me.
Maybe I misremembered.
I'm ugly. All I know how to do is hunt, but I don't even want to do that.
No, but at the end of the last book, when she gets turned into Fae, it's just like, oh my god, yeah, the end. You don't really get
I guess so, yeah.
the depression. And then in this book, it's like...
Oh, from killing those people? Yeah.
She definitely...
You're right about that.
She definitely gets that in this book. And I, at first, was here for it because I was like, okay, well, finally we're addressing the fact that she's been through it. And then after a while, it was like, calm the fuck down.
Yeah, spoiler alert, she doesn't get less depressed in the next 600 pages.
No, she doesn't. And I assumed, I guess wrongly, that her relationship with Rhys and kind of getting saved by him would increase her happiness or like enhance her mood in some regard, but it didn't seem to really do that. Like, she got blinded by the dick for sure, but that was pretty much the extent of her, I don't know, emotional capacity beyond being depressed.
And then the fact that it doesn't end on a high note either. I mean, I know we're getting a little ahead, but the whole thing was really something.
Getting back to the beginning, Farah is obviously super depressed at the events that happened under the mountain, and she is simultaneously having to prepare for this wedding to Tamlin, and she is increasingly noticing things that are kind of worrisome to her. We find out pretty quickly that Tamlin is a bit of a Republican. I tweeted that like months ago and y'all really seem to like it because it's fucking true. The way that he's characterized, it's honestly astounding how she could go from having him be kind of Farah's savior to being this guy who's like kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I suppose there were like tiny hints of that in the first book, but it wasn't enough to really like raise any red flags beyond just like the kind of alpha male-ness of him, you know, like the kind of over the top stuff.
But now he's like, you know, this isn't your place because you're a woman, and I mean, you know, I'm sure that we'll cover it in a little bit, but during during the tithe, when she asks why they do these things, he's like, I don't know, it's just tradition. My parents did it, and so I'm doing it, and my children will do it.
I think we can talk about that right now, honestly, because I think that really
it is pretty early book.
Pretty early on in the book. I think to me, all of the beginning is sort of a blur in that she's really depressed.
The whole thing is just to like start to make Tamlin look like a real piece of shit.
Basically. So one of the kind of pivotal scenes at the beginning of the book, as Hayden just mentioned, is the tithe scene where basically, I mean, it's reminiscent of, I would say, like medieval England when there was like serfdoms and shit like that, and you would have to come forward to your, I don't know, fief? Who's in charge?
You tell me. I don't know nothing about those things.
It's been a second, okay? I was a history major, but it's been a fucking second. Basically, you have to come forward to your lord and be like, hey, here's like a percentage of my money that I'm giving up to you, or a percentage of my crops or grains or whatever the fuck you have.
I mean, it's fucking taxes.
Yeah,
almost.
Taxes essentially. Basically, in exchange, he provides protection to everybody. So that's sort of like the way that it works. Tamlin, I think, what was it, like a water, not a sprite, but...
Water wraith.
Water wraith comes forward and is like, yo, I don't have anything. And Farah's like, we don't really need anything. We're like self-sufficient anyway. The whole taxes thing is kind of bullshit. Like, let's just let her live.
Well, not only does she not have anything, but all of the fish in the water are fucking dead. We can't even catch food to eat, much less catch enough to like give to you.
And Tamlin is basically saying there can be no special exceptions or exemptions for anyone. And Farah's like, that's fucking stupid. Like, we're fine. We don't need any of this stuff anyway. That's really, I think, where we're starting to see Tamlin's true colors, if we haven't already seen them before. And also, I think another big thing that kind of stood out to me was the fact that the whole idea of like them getting married comes up, and he says something to the effect of, or I guess she raises or poses the question, what will I be when we become married?
Yeah, will I be a high lady? And he's like, there's no fucking high ladies.
You'll be like my consort, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I fucking hate that word. I've always hated it all throughout history.
What does it even really mean?
You are married into a royal family. You are not part of the royal family.
Okay.
Yeah, like you are married to the king. King consort, queen consort.
Well, you learn something new every day.
That was another, like, just nail in the coffin. And I think, obviously, the final straw in this scenario is when Tamlin tries to lock up Farah in the house and does not allow her to leave. And that's something that recurs throughout the beginning of the book.
Literally Beauty and the Beast to this extent. You know, he's like a shape-shifting, like can turn into a fucking beast with claws and shit, and then he locks her away.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a fair comparison. He essentially locks her up because he doesn't think the lands are safe still, because even though Amarantha has been defeated, there's some shit that's kind of boiling and we don't know exactly the extent to it because Tamlin does not want to share with Farah at all. And I think he's going out on a hunt or something, or like going to defend the lands. He's like, you can't come. And he locks her in the house, knowing how much PTSD she had from being locked away.
She's having nightmares every night. She's throwing up.
Yeah. Eventually, she gets saved, which is nice, I guess.
Well, because, you know, in the end of the first book, she makes this kind of contract with Rhys where, like, he can take her for how much amount of time every month?
I think it's 2 weeks a month or something.
No, I think it's just a week. But, you know, she says that in the first, like, 3 months after her return, like, she never heard anything. So she was like, maybe he was just making the deal symbolically just to mark her with these tattoos, but he's never really gonna, like, take her up on it. Yeah.
But he does.
Yeah, he really does. But, I mean, to be fair, she was calling out for it. We're actually getting a bit ahead of ourselves because I'm just remembering now that the first time that she gets taken is actually when they're about to be wed. It's not when she's locked in the house. That's the last time that she gets taken away. The first time is when they're about to be married. She's doing the same thing where she's like kind of calling out for help, but like in her own head. Unbeknownst to her, there's a mental bond between the two of them that he can just hear these calls for help, and so he comes.
The mental bond is Rhys. I don't think you said that. Yeah, Rhys ends up coming to her rescue and takes her away to the night court. That's where we get our first taste of it. It's super interesting, kind of a side note. One of the biggest things to me that I remember from her first time in the night court is the fact that she gets clothing, basically Jasmine's outfit from Aladdin.
What's funny is that's exactly what I pictured in my head.
I mean, that's exactly what they're going for. And it's fascinating to me because Sarah J. Maas does absolutely nothing to have any sort of diversity in any of her books. There's pretty much no black people or brown people or Asian people. Like, there's no fucking diversity. I understand that's fantasy, but there's literally no diversity. So for her to co-opt that outfit and put it in like the land of the really white people. It was a choice, but
But I will say this, I mean, her descriptions of the Night Court, I didn't feel any of this in the first book when she talked about the Spring Court, but in the Night Court, I felt like this could have been really interesting to see adapted to like a screen or something, you know?
Yeah.
Like just all of the descriptions in this book and the way that it unfolds actually made me say like I want to see this visually. Like it would be interesting to see in a movie, whereas the first book I was like,
I don't
fucking
really care
take it
as
or
much.
leave it. Yeah,
That's
really
fair.
could not care.
So anyway, she arrives at the Night Court. She gets into her Princess Jasmine outfit. She is mostly left alone for this first trip there. Does she meet...
Yeah, she meets more the first time as well.
But for the most part, she's left alone, which is not really what she's anticipating. I think she thought that Rhys would be very forward and would try to irritate her. And while he does tease her a little bit, he definitely allows her space to kind of recover. I think he understands what she's gone through, more so than Tamlin possibly could. And I think that's where we start to see, like, oh, okay, we might actually like him.
Well, and I think that he also understands her fear of the unknown Night Court and everything that's been said about it, because, I mean, as he admits multiple times later on in the book, everyone thinks the worst about his court and, like, thinks that they're all torturous, and he lets them believe that in order for him to maintain this air of intimidation and power against other people. Other people think that he's evil, and he lets that happen, but he doesn't want that to happen with her. He wants her to see what's really going on here.
Exactly. And,
So he's letting her ease into it.
so did you question his motives at the beginning?
Well, when they first met, I was pretty sure that he was, I guess, capturing her. The same reason at the end of the last book, because he was attracted to her and or liked her in some way, or maybe thought that he loved her or something like that. He was drawn to her.
Yeah.
So I thought it mostly had to do with that. That's not really wrong, but, you know, we learn pretty quickly that he has other motives.
Other motives, yeah.
As well.
I wish I could remember how I felt the first time reading this, because reading it a second time, it's kind of hard to ascertain like what his feelings are, because first book it's clear that it's all for him, and he very much like he is attracted to her, but it's for himself. Like he's not trying to help her for the sake of helping her. Whereas in this book, he obviously like he's leaving her alone, and that's not because he doesn't want anything to do with her. It's for her own good. So it was interesting, I guess, to see how his motives are potentially changing. That's
well,
just something that...
and what we find out later on in the book is that his motives really aren't changing. He had those motives the whole time. But anyways...
That first time, he leaves her alone, and then the second time, I believe, when Farah's locked in the house and he saves her that second time, because I think she lashes out. Does she explode with one of her powers?
Yeah, exactly.
In the house, and Rhys takes her again, and I believe it's this time, too, that he starts teaching her to read.
I think it actually was the first time that he takes her, that he tries to start teaching her how to read.
He does mention it, but I think it's the second time that he actually...
Well, there's a time or two in between those times when he takes her, like, he comes back and actually takes her on more scheduled times after the first time. He's like, now you're gonna come here, you're gonna learn how to read. And then during one of those times, he mentions to her, like, hey, have you never thought about these powers that it seems that you might have? And then kind of tells her about this impending war that he believes is gonna happen, and then lets her go back to Tamlin one last time to, I guess, it ends up being one last time, but it's not planned that it's one last time. But he lets her go back and try to explain some of these things to Tamlin, hoping to persuade him to assist them, needing all of the allies of all of the courts.
This is true. Is it bad that I don't really give a shit about any of that?
What?
I just don't care about the plot of this book.
Okay, what do you care about in this book? Just her and Rhys getting together?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the least of this book for me. But I guess that's just me.
I knew you wouldn't care about that, but just trying to recount all of the like details of what happens, like I don't care about.
Don't worry, I got you, fam.
I don't care about the minutia, is what I'm saying, and I don't know that we want to bore other people with it. More so, we want to talk about our feelings about the details that were included.
Well, I'll tell you, let's get into the first detail here, because in one of the times, it's the time when he's explaining to her this impending war, right? Sure. They're standing in front of a giant map of all of the courts, and he's pointing out, you know, here lies Night Court, here's the Day Court, the Summer Court, you know, all of the seasonal courts, right? And she says something about, you know, it's daytime in the Night Court at the time. I'm just gonna say...
Hayden's gonna give us a fucking science lesson here.
Not really. I'm just gonna say, I think that Sarah J. Maas is either really fucking stupid.
Yes.
Or they're trying to say that the fairies believe in a flat earth. It's daytime in the night court. And she's like, how does that work? And he's like, well, the seasonal courts can control the seasons, but we're just fairies with magic. We're not powerful enough to control the sun. As if seasons aren't related to the sun, and or as if, like, the solar system is Earth-centric. Just wanted to throw that out. Immediately when I read it, I came into the bedroom and said to Chandler, I think that Sarah J. Maas believes in flat Earth.
No, you said the fairies are flat earthers, and that was pretty good. I did tweet it.
Yeah.
So thank you for the fodder, but...
Yeah, that's the follow-up there. That's where my mind was at. Can we talk about her newfound superpowers, at least at this point in the very beginning?
Sure.
In my mind, when they first brought this up, I was like, oh yay, not only does she get transformed into a high fae...
Yes.
Now she supposedly has these hidden fucking superpowers that would make her possibly the most powerful high fae to ever exist with, like, training, if she trains them. I was just like, no, super coincidental. This is awesome. I love all of these plot points in this story.
I don't know how you can be shocked. It's centered on a female main character in a young adult fantasy, and you don't think she's gonna have all the fucking superpowers. Like,
I don't know.
Duh.
I don't read these. It's
it would
new
be
to me.
too powerful of a trope subversion for the main character of any of these books to have no powers and to be powerless, and yet somehow, like, save the world.
Twilight?
Bella has power.
In what?
You haven't read all the books, so you don't know.
In being the dumbest bitch alive? I read fucking 2 of them.
Don't
and
blaspheme in my
she
house.
is good for nothing in both of those books.
Well, you haven't read the other 2, so...
Whatever.
No disrespect in this house. Okay, back to the task at hand.
Also, just another... I'm looking at my notes here, and
Sure.
a couple of these points happen very early in the book. So,
Okay.
as we mentioned earlier, you know, she asked Tamlin about what will happen when they get married, and he says, you know, she's like, will I be a high lady?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, there's no high ladies. And I was like, thanks for the fucking spoilers, Sarah J. Maas. Now I know exactly how the end of this book is going to go. And I was...
I don't know that it's a spoiler, so much
100%
as
spot on.
foreshadowing.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. If she foreshadows anything in this book, it is going to happen. Sometimes people foreshadow something to try to make you think that it's going one way, and then misdirection. In the end of the book, you're like, oh, I totally thought because they said this thing that it was going to happen, and it wasn't going to happen.
It's Sarah J. Maas.
I don't know these things. I'm new to it. But, I mean, obviously I know these things now. And I guessed it at the very beginning of this book that that's how it was going to go. Anything that she brought up was 100% going to happen.
Okay, so moving on, I guess, kind of to give some more context for the plot as we tear this book apart. The central, I would say, premise of this book is the fact that there's an impending war coming, and the way that they're going to stop this war is by getting this magical book that will in some way deactivate a cauldron that the King of Hybern has.
Not a cauldron, Chandler. The fucking cauldron, okay? Cauldrons be damned. By the cauldron.
I honestly can't even remember the name of the... What's the name of the book? Do you know the name of the book? I don't know the name of the book.
It's the Book of Breathings, I believe.
I put the bookie book.
I do believe it's the Book of Breathings.
That sounds right. So the whole point basically is for them to retrieve the pieces of this book because it has been basically like torn to shreds, and they get it together and it'll be magical and it'll deactivate this cauldron that was gonna fucking, I don't know, hurt the world. So the premise from there, the plot from there, is that there are different like missions that they have to go on. It reminds me a lot of Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus because there's little quests, you know? Have you seen that film?
Well,
it's excellent.
No, I haven't, but I was going to say... it reminded me a lot of, like, the last 2 or 3 books in the Harry Potter series.
Yeah, exactly.
Where they're, like, they finally
The
figure out... Yeah, they're trying to get all of the Horcruxes, and they have to go on all of these little different missions that are all just very dangerous. And in each time they're like, oh, are you kidding me? I have to do what? But it's, like, 6 or 7 times, and you just get tired of it.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, and there's also some, like, side quests, I would say. The time where Farah has to go and pick up the ring from the Weaver's house.
Yeah. Speaking of the Weaver, like, when I read this story, so essentially they're trying to test whether or not she can detect objects that belong to other High Lords, or like objects that are like, you know,
imbued with magical powers.
Exactly. But specific magical powers.
Yes, and that's important because the whole, like, the book is magical, and they think it could potentially be hidden from other people.
Yeah.
So they need someone who can detect it. That's kind of Farah's usefulness in this situation. There's a whole gang of people around Rhys, which is important kind of later on. We'll talk about some of those characters. Basically, yeah, from here, Farah is... Her usefulness, I guess, is the fact that she could potentially detect these powers. Because she has the powers of each of the High Lords, potentially she can find the book. So her first test is to go to the Weaver's house.
Is to go to the Weaver's house. And, you know, they're like, oh, we're going to see the Weaver. And they're like, oh my god, the Weaver. And she's like, all right, whatever, how bad could it be? And they're like, very bad. So they take her to the middle of the woods, and there's this old blind lady. Or no, she's not old. She's like kind of youngish looking. She's this blind lady that lives in the woods.
Yes,
and she
in a cottage.
And she like keeps treasures, almost like an old dragon. She just hoards all of her goods. She's blind, but her senses are super heightened in every other form.
Regards to
and
she's quiet.
Yeah.
And not smell.
She's supposed to like sneak in. Oh, she also can't bring in anything that doesn't belong there. So she can bring daggers because the Weaver has like knives on her dinner table, but she can't bring a sword because swords don't belong there.
I honestly couldn't remember that, but congratulations. You've got a fine attention to details.
I have a fine memory. You always tell me that I am...
That is true.
Yeah, that I don't have an attention to detail. And essentially, Farah breaks into this lady's house, a blind woman living in the woods, doing nothing to Farah. Just wanted to point that out again, because I'm pro-Weaver in this story. So she breaks into the Weaver's house. The Weaver is just in there, like, weaving some shit, and she's, like, singing some, like, happy tales. Not really. They're, like, the scary old...
Death-like fucking tunes.
Yeah, but they're for children. Kind of like Ring Around the Rosie, you know?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, so she has to go in there, she has to, like, she doesn't even know what she's trying to steal. She's got to find what it is. And
like it's gonna, like, magically glow for her or
yeah, so she finds it's a ring, she picks the ring up, she's about to leave, and the Weaver's like, who the fuck's in my house? She doesn't say anything, and the Weaver's like, yeah, I know you're fucking in here, like, what's up? I'm gonna make all the fucking doorknobs disappear, and the latches on the windows, you're fucking trapped in here. Then Farah uses her crazy new powers to set all of the Weaver's threads on fire. So her whole wall's like smoking up, and then she starts climbing through the chimney to get out.
I can just remember it because there's apparently like fat on the...
Yeah, it's from people. It's people grease.
People grease.
So she's climbing up this like lubed up chimney, and the Weaver comes in from the bottom, and Farah uses her powers to take a brick free and launches it at this lady's face and busts her face all up, and she's all like bleeding black blood.
Sometimes
and shit.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
And then she leaves. But I'm just thinking to myself, like, this was a test. Rhys was thinking, I'm gonna test her with this to test her powers. But really, the whole test was, let's go break into an old blind lady's house, steal her shit, set her house on fire, and then smash her fucking face with a brick, and then leave.
I mean,
leave.
When you put it like that.
That's why I'm pro-Weaver. She wasn't doing anything. I mean, sure, she captures people and, like, turns them into thread and, like, you know, eats their flesh and, like, eats their bones. But those are only people that are coming to steal her treasures. She's just an old dragon type person where she's just in there to, like, hoard her goods.
If anyone was wondering what the comparison is to Barbie and the Magic Pegasus, there's a scene where Barbie is captured by an ogre or a very large man, and she's put in a cauldron and is going to be eaten. And I just remember playing, I think there was a game for the PC, and you were like in the fucking cauldron with like carrots and stuff, and you had to like try to figure out a way to get out of the cauldron and out of this man's house. So
well, see, but there's a difference there, you know? Was Barbie trying to steal from the ogre?
I'm sure she was. Fucking thieving whore.
Oh, okay. Well, then there's no difference. It's completely parallel.
Well, the whole point of that lore, if anyone was curious, is she's trying to find components to this like magic staff, and I think
so. She's trying to take over the world too.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I'm saying they're the same story.
They really are. You don't have to convince me. I'm convinced
I make a strong
already.
argument for this. The next task, the next journey that we're going on, to the creepy dude in prison.
Bone Carver.
Yes, my man.
My man, Bone Carver.
So we're going to him to ask questions about Hybern and Hybern's plans, I believe. I can't remember the details. The details are fuzzy, so fill them in for us.
Okay, so that is why they're going there. They know for some reason that this is what I don't understand is how the Bone Carver just knows things. Oh, okay, I know exactly. Okay, I remember now.
Brain blast.
They don't know. He doesn't just know things like the Surreal. He knows things about bones. He's the Bone Carver. But they know that he doesn't really like talking to that many people. He only wants to see people he's never seen before and ask them truths that he doesn't know already. So that's why they bring Farah to the Bone Carvers. They know that he'll be interested to talk to her because she's like the only one of her kind, and also he's never met her before. So they take her into the prison, which Farah is scared to do and turns back at one point, and they have to bring her back another day, which I was like, really? They brought her ass all the way out there, and then she's like, nah, I'm good, let's come back tomorrow. Anyways, they get her inside the prison, which apparently Rhys is the only one that owns. He owns the prison, by the way. Hashtag Rhys is the most conservative. Private prisons,
Prison
guys.
reform.
Private prisons. They go down into the prison, and they talk to the Bone Carver, and the reason that they talk to the Bone Carver is because they have heard that Hybern wants to use the cauldron in order to resurrect Jurian.
Yes, who's a famous warrior guy.
They don't know for sure that Jurian can be resurrected, and they want to know if it's possible, and two, what would be necessary, because they know that they have a finger bone and his eye that was in Amarantha's ring. So they want to know if it's possible, and because part of it was a finger bone, they go and ask the bone guy, and, he asks Farah to tell a bunch of truths about herself in return for all of these things. He asks for her bones at one point, tries to make a deal with Rhys, saying, I'll give you the information that you want if you promise me her bones when she dies. Instead, they end up giving him the bone that she used to, slay the Midgard worm.
Yes.
And he tells her as she's leaving, I'm going to carve your death into this bone, like a depiction of your death. Honestly, I thought it was kind of fucking cool. I kind of liked the Bone Carver.
He's pretty cool, dude.
Everyone was scared of him, but he didn't do anything that I thought was that scary. Dude's just kind of into bones. It's not like he's into making bones. He doesn't want to kill people to get their bones, but he's cool with having their bones after. He's a paleontologist. That's all he is. The Bone Carver is just a paleontologist and an artist in one. Changed my mind.
One of the components of what happens, one of the questions that they ask or that they get the answer to, is the fact that half of the book that they're looking for...
Well, this is where they find out about the book.
Yeah, probably. Whatever. Semantics. They figure out that half of the book is in the mortal realm, and Farah thinks that it's a good idea to loop her sisters in on the fact that there's an impending war coming.
Well, here's the thing. She actually doesn't want to, but
I know.
They need to contact the queens of the mortal realm.
Who have the book.
And in order to do that, they think that the only way to really do that is to have a safe space for both of them, because they think that the queens of the mortal realm might be scared if some fairies just show up, on their doorstep. They also know that the queens won't come to the fairylands. So they're like, let's set up this DMZ in between.
A what?
A demilitarized zone.
Okay.
It's a spot between
I understand, thank you. I was not familiar with the acronym.
The term DMZ, okay. Her sister's, or her father's estate, which I guess is just her. I'm very confused as to why we don't see her father in this book. They just decided...
Gone away.
Well, yeah, I know, but why was that a choice that they made?
Because who gives a fuck about the old man?
Me, maybe?
Well, dude, that's too goddamn bad. We don't need him.
Why do we need the sisters?
They're important later.
But yeah, so they go and have a run-in with the sisters.
And this is kind of where we get the beginnings of the interactions between, Cassian and Nesta, and Elaine, and everybody else, I guess. I mean, I think the real story of the show here is the whole Cassie and Nesta relationship.
Yeah.
They've got this whole enemies to lovers situation that's starting to form, and we're...
Does it form? Is that too much to give away? Or is
I don't
it
think
just
so.
very
I think
Sarah
that's-
J. Maas to know that she mentioned it, so it will happen?
Yeah, everybody's straight and white, and they're going to end up together. together.
Okay.
Everybody ends up together.
Yeah, so her sisters are, well, I mean, Nessa in particular is not super fucking thrilled about the fact that
She's a fucking
Farah's
bitch.
a fae now.
She's a right bitch.
Farah? It's in the fucking name, bitch. Go ahead and learn. But yeah, Nesta is just real cold.
She's kind of a bitch, and I like Rhys's reaction to his sisters. He is really sad that Farah's sister sucks so bad, and he kind of understands a little bit more about her by being around her sisters.
And Cassian, like, snaps at one point, like, snaps at her. She's like, he's, like, looking at Nesta, and Nesta's like, the fuck you looking at? And he's like, if you expect me to keep my mouth shut about the fact that you were such a bitch to your younger sister who had to go out and literally make sure that you got food day to day, then, you know, you can go ahead and fucking shove it, because I'm not going to keep my mouth shut about it.
Amen.
And she just doesn't say anything about it. Like, she's just like, alright.
And so after that, after the kind of the groundwork is set, we don't revisit them until later on in the book. But now we're gonna go to the summer court and betray some motherfuckers.
So here is where I want to talk about Sarah J. Maas's attempt at diversity. Okay, so first of all, how do you say his name? Is it Tarkin or Tarquin? Which one do you want to go with? Which one do you say in your mind when you read it?
I'll leave it up to you.
I'm gonna say Tarkin just because
Okay.
it's easier on the mouth than
That's
Tarquin.
fine. Sure.
You know?
Let's go for it. Tarquin is the...
You said Tarquin, so we're going with Tarquin now. Tarquin is the king of the Summer Court, correct? He's the High Lord?
High Lord, yes.
When they first arrive, they describe everyone in the Summer Court as having dark brown skin. Yeah, so...
But don't they have, like, light-colored eyes or something?
So, I think that they're described as, like, either, like, silver or purple or something. It's not, like,
Okay.
they're fucking fae.
So
like,
that's what I'm saying. This could not be a true race of people.
who are you to decide what a true race of people is? And that's what I'm saying. They're fairies.
Yes.
So are they also supposed to conform to our human idea of race? And if not, then what is diversity in the fairy kingdoms? I know that this is getting a little philosophical and deep here, but
It's hurting my brain.
do you want them to be diverse in the fact that there's high fae and lesser fae, or that there's things such as water wraiths and adders and stuff that are, you know, obviously a different, like, race? Or is she's going so far even as to say that the Summer Court has dark-skinned fairies?
That's true. I think for me, since
So I think she's really trying here.
Yeah, and I appreciate it since, like, you know, closer to the equator, or if it's like a summer court, it makes sense to have darker skinned people. I think she could have done more besides this, because these are the only
That's fair.
people that have brown skin.
But also, how often does she describe the skin of other people?
A fair amount. Or at least describes the hair, which you can kind of like if someone's
I guess
blonde
that's
with
fair.
blue eyes, you can assume that they're probably not darker skinned.
I guess it's fair.
Because it's Sarah J. Maas. Also, the sexual diversity, or, you know, the LGBT-ness is quite lacking. Moving along.
At one point here, and I don't remember the exact context, but we find out that Rhys is claiming that because Farah is now part of his administration, I guess, if you want to say.
Merry Band of Misfits, yeah.
Yeah, that she is getting paid. I really liked that she asked how much.
Why the fuck wouldn't you?
Well, because she's been in the Night Court for a very short amount of time, right? How the fuck does she expect to understand what the number that he would say even means? Like, she's never had to fucking buy anything in the Night Court.
So you're saying the fake currency, how is she to know what the true value
what the
of
value
it is?
of the currency is. Even if he gave a number and said like 3 trillion a month or something like that, that could be like the same thing as...
One could assume it would still, like, you would still be like, oh, that's a lot of money. I think that's a fair question. I also think it doesn't really fucking matter. So back to the task at hand. So now we're in the summer court to retrieve half of the book, Breathings, because we assume it's at the summer court. I don't honestly remember why we think it's there, but...
I think that they've been told by someone.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's probably part of Azrael's spy network or something has discerned this information. Either that or it's part of legend.
So they go...
Oh, no, wait. The Bone Carver tells them.
That makes sense.
The Bone Carver knows this shit for some reason. He tells them the whole tale of, like, supposedly, as legend goes, the cauldron was too dangerous, so people took the feet off of it and hid them in these different temples, which already got ransacked, which is why they feared that this was happening in the first place. And apparently, for some reason, Rhys already knows where it is, too, because the Bone Carver says, like, come on, let's be real. You're just coming here to confirm your suspicions. You already know. He says you know who has it. So why they know, I'm not sure, but... they do know.
I mean, there's not really much to say about this whole expedition into the summer court, except for it's sort of a dangerous endeavor when they actually have to go and retrieve the book physically, and it's Farah and Amren that end up doing this. Amren is part of the inner circle. I think that's what they call it. They're saved at the last second by, I think, is it Amren's powers or is it Farah's?
It's neither. It's the water wraiths.
Yes, the water wraiths end up saving them because of Farah's bravery in standing up to the curmudgeon that is Tamlin.
It's the generosity. Yeah, she like gave the water wraith that couldn't pay her debts her jewels that she was wearing, like took like all of her jewelry off and like gave it to her. And she was like, I will never forget this debt or whatever. And
it comes in handy. And I can appreciate that. Good job for Sarah J. Maas.
Yeah, and then when they save her, they say like our sister's debt has been paid or something like that.
Pretty badass. So they're able to retrieve the book. It's pretty fucked up because the entire time that they're there, they're betraying the generosity of the guy who is basically taking them in. Like, Tarquin is pretty nice, and he gives Farah jewels and shit, too, while she's there. So, around this time, after the whole betrayal of Tarquin, we find out that Tamlin's family killed Rhysand's mom and sister, because we're finding out a little bit more about the winged people. The fuck are they called?
Illyrians?
Illyrians, yes. So we're finding out a little bit more about Rhys's history and his past because we're finding out a little bit more about Azriel and Cassian. I always forget the motherfucker's name.
That asthma.
And so yeah, we find out that Tamlin's family killed Rhysand's mom and sister, and then Rhysand and his dad killed Tamlin's whole family, and all of this feels really healthy.
And then Tamlin killed Rhysand's dad.
Yeah.
And that's how both of them became High Lords in the same moment at the same time.
We just go kill everybody's family.
And then apparently Rhys just ran away. Like, once that happened. Once, like, Tamlin killed his dad, he was like, shit, I guess we even now or something. And then, like, left. So that's fun.
And then, from there, the only notes that I really have are really about the relationship that starts to blossom at about the 70% mark.
No, it's more like the 85 fucking percent mark.
Sure. Of this book. Because I feel like the rest of the book is not really that great other than the relationship.
No, I mean, because like the ending isn't very climactic at all.
It's pretty lackluster.
Well, it's not lackluster. It's like it is the build, and it seems like it's kind of still building when the book ends. So there's no real release there. It's just like a continuous build all the way to the end.
I was gonna make a sexual innuendo there, but I will not.
Going nowhere fast.
What was I gonna say? So basically what
happened? About them fucking?
First, let's just get out of the way what happens at the end of the book. Essentially, they do meet up with the bitchy queens from the other realm, and do they get the other half of the book?
So essentially, just a very brief overrun of this. They go to meet the queens. The queens are like, we've heard bad things about you, Rhys, so you gotta prove to us that we can trust you with the half of the book. And so...
They end up, she ends up showing them...
Valeris, the secret city, which is like really nice and good, but they have to go to the Nightmare Kingdom, or the Nightmare City of Nightmare. What do they call it?
Court of Nightmares.
The Court of Nightmares? Do they call it that? I don't think that they call it that because it would make itself its own court, and it's not.
No, it is.
They have to go to get this like orb in order to show them. And in this travel, I really liked this part, kind of, not really, but it just kind of came out of nowhere because Moore's dad lives down there.
Yes.
And he calls Farah a whore. He just immediately turns around and breaks like more than half of the bones in his body in front of everyone, and it's like, anyone else want to try that shit? And they're like, also, if you go to see a healer, I'll take all the bones out of your body and bury them in different places. And I was like, Jesus
I did like that detail. Let's wrap it up quick. They got the orb. They bring it back to the queens. And
they show them. Yes. The queens are like, it's actually only like one queen that's like there to see it, and she's like, I'll confer with my sisters. And they're like, yo, what the fuck? Like, we don't have time for conferring with your sister. And she's like, I don't care, I have to go confirm with it. And she gets up and leaves. She had actually stolen the book and had left it under her seat. So when she got up, it was just there, and there was a note there that was like, yo, Rhys, I read your letter about being in love with an ex-human bitch, and like, I believe you, and you know, some people aren't as good. Don't trust the rest of the queens. The one that wasn't here because she was sick.
Lying ass bitch.
Yeah, she's a lying ass bitch. So they get the second half of the book, and then Amren has to translate it because apparently it's written in Amren's language. Like, I don't know what kind of creature she is, and I wanted to ask you have you read all of the books that have come out? Do we ever find out?
Not really.
Fuck, that's so depressing. That's like one of the only parts of this book that I want to know. Does she ever like...
Some stuff happens, yes.
Okay, cool. That's all I wanted to know. We just keep getting hints about like the fact that she's not what she looks like she is, and that she's probably the most powerful being in the fucking universe or something. It's written in her language. She's got to translate it.
You're talking far too much about shit that I don't care about. So anyway, Amryn translates these books, the book, in her language. And then from there, we essentially get a like mini showdown, I guess, between the King of Hybern and then all these bitches. And in the process, I think the most like lasting impact of what happens is the fact that the cauldron's put back together, and we find out that the cauldron can make fae. And we know that the cauldron works because we get to see both Nesta and Elaine thrown into the cauldron, and they come out much changed, but not very happy about the changes. Yeah. They never really wanted to be fae, so
you know who is happy? Motherfucking Lucian. Gonna get him an ex-human girl too, man. Him and Tamlin got some stuff in common.
If she agrees, because...
No, did you not hear the way he said it? You are my mate. Well, that's the way things work in the Spring Court, babe. I don't think you understand that.
It actually, that's not true. So
they're a red state.
So anyway, that's kind of the end of the book, and nothing really happens.
Well, barely. Almost the end of the book. The last thing that happens
Tell me the last thing.
In order to save everyone else, Farah acts like she's been brainwashed the whole time and is like, oh my god, what did Rhys do to me? Please, King of Hybern, break the bond between us.
Break the bond between me and Rhysand so I can go back to Tamlin.
Yeah, and not have to come back with him every month. So he breaks the bond, or so he thinks. And then she goes back to the Spring Court with Tamlin. The sisters go back to the Night Court with Rhysand and the friends. And the book goes back with them as well. Rhysand starts to prepare for war. Farah goes back to the Spring Court and starts, like, preparing to be a spy for Rhysand and take down Tamlin's kingdom from the inside out, because motherfucking Tamlin sold all their asses out, and so did Iantha.
Bitch ass bitch.
Yeah, and that's how they captured her sisters and turned them into fae. So she told Tamlin, like, fuck you for everything you've done. I'm going to destroy your kingdom from the inside out. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my god, I had amnesia. I was being mind controlled. I don't remember anything of what happened. I will try to help you the best that I can with the bits that I do remember.
I love that he instantly believes it too. It's like,
yeah,
you fucking
Farah,
idiot.
You're back. I know none of it was you. We need to get you home to rest, where I can keep you in the tower forever.
But I think now that kind of is a great transition, because we can talk a little bit about how we got to this place of Farah being so on Rhysand's side. We can talk about the romance, which everybody's been like excited about, I guess, this whole time. I've been excited about it. I'm hoping you guys are too. So at about the 70-80% mark, we get the hints that Farah and Rhys might want to bone.
Just the part where he starts like touching her coochie and then is like, all right, go to sleep, I'm gonna rub your back.
So we get the first hints of their relationship kind of throughout the book. I think there's supposed to be the sexual tension, although I have to say, reading it the second time, I didn't think that there was that much lead up to the sexual relationship that happens to them.
There is.
You do? You
There's
think
a lot of lead up. Yeah, it's the whole book.
I
mean, at the very beginning, he's like forcing her to, you know, right, Rhys is the handsomest High Lord in all of the land, blah blah blah. Rhys is the best lover a woman could ever wish for. And then, you know, he'll say stuff like, oh, I bet you look great in those little scrappy pieces of lace, talking about her underwear at one point.
I'm saying
I think Cassian wants you to ride him. That's obviously like just I guess kind of like a jealous comment kind of thing.
Yeah.
Also the same thing with Tarquin. There's many references to licking each other throughout the book. They just straight up say that. I don't really know what more of a lead up you would like.
I think there's a lot of jealousy, obviously, before they end up getting together. I just don't think that there's enough in the way of relationship building. A friendship, I feel like, should have formed.
I love his taut body and his hard wings.
His impressive wingspan.
Considerable length.
And considerable fucking length, brother.
They say that too many times.
Too many times. But the first kind of run-in they have is after we learn a little bit more about the Illyrians and their camps, and I think everybody gets all kind of like wet and muddy, and they end up staying at an inn. It's Farah and Rhys, and in this situation, he ends up rubbing up on her coochie as he...
Well, she fucking asks for it.
Well, duh.
Essentially.
Yeah,
She's
she
like,
does.
please.
Does she say it like that?
Yeah. She said it like it says it in the book in quotes, like please, like multiple times.
I think, well, and I think the way that it got started is because of the jealousy kind of, not even jealousy, but he's like, yeah, well, Cassian wants you. And she's like, okay, well, maybe I'll go after him. And then they're like, you know what? Well, we both have a sexual desire. Why don't we just do it?
He's like, why don't I just stick my fingers in your coochie and then taste it?
You know? Oh, I do think I have in my notes that Farah tastes finger looking good.
Yeah,
so.
She got that secret blend of herbs and spices. Is it KFC or Popeyes that's finger licking good?
I think it's KFC.
Is it?
Let's look it up.
We just looked up finger licking good.
KFC suspends iconic finger looking good campaign amid coronavirus fears. I am not someone who thinks you should make light of a pandemic, but this shit's funny as fuck.
That's funny. That's good.
Don't lick your fingers at this moment in time, but...
It depends on where they've been. But they don't even fuck then.
They don't fuck then.
He's like, let me rub your back and go to sleep.
And honestly, I read that scene and I was like...
You were like, that sounds like heaven?
Yes. I'm a woman of simple tastes.
I'm a man of exquisite tastes. Emphasis on taste.
Okay, I hate that. Anyway, we do end up getting a sex scene in this book, though. So how did you feel when you got to the sex scene? Were you tingling? Were you excited for this to happen? Like, give me your feelings.
Honestly, what I wrote down during the sex scene time, I hate that they said considerable length so many times, and specifically she said
what would you have preferred, massive fucking boner?
I undid his pants and released his considerable length. The side of it made my mouth run dry.
Wouldn't it make your mouth water?
Who wants to get your dick sucked by
a
cat tongue? Just full on sandpaper. Also, my other note to make was she said cock a few times in this book, which she hadn't said previously. Like, I thought that she was trying to keep it more like PG-13 in like the first book.
Well, especially with the like considerable length, you assume that she's not gonna say
big old dick. Yeah, but she says cock a couple of times. I saw his cock like twinge with excitement or something like that, I think is what she said. It was gross. Also, my other note was just wonder who's going to be her mate in the next book. Seems like she's got a new one every book, so I'm looking forward to the new boo in book 3.
Well, I don't know why you would think that.
Why what?
Why you would think she would have a new boo. I think it's...
Because it's happened twice now?
I'm pretty sure it's clear that...
And they had the same exact kind of build-up where she thinks that the person is an asshole, and then slowly she's like, oh my god, they've actually been so helpful, and I've been so stupid as to like all of the things that they've done for me. I'm gonna fuck them.
So you're saying Farrah's an easy lay?
No, I'm just saying she's predictable.
No, that does not happen. She stays with Homeboy because they're, like, actual mates.
That's what we thought about Tamlin.
No, we didn't. We didn't think they were mates. We just thought that they were people that were going to be mated, but, like, they weren't actually mates, because mates...
I thought that's how it worked.
No, mates is, like, a physical bond that you can't manufacture.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of romantical. I don't know. Also, how did you feel about that mountain shaking orgasm? Did you notice that the mountains shook whenever he came on a roar?
No, I didn't notice that.
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't paying really hard attention to that scene.
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic.
No, I'm being dead serious.
Well, it's a good thing that I'm here to provide the details for the important
good thing
things.
that I knew what happened in this book whatsoever. But I'm also glad that you noticed the mountain shaking orgasm. This book could have been 3 pages for you.
And it pretty much was. Overall, that's my feelings and thoughts. What are you gonna rate this?
10 out of 10 for predictability.
Give me a Goodreads rating, fool.
I was going to be surprised when, kind of towards the end, she hadn't become a high lady. And then at the very end, they were like, yo, psych, we didn't tell any of y'all, but we snuck out and made her a high lady. This is, like, literally the last, 3 pages of the book. They're like, psych, she's the high lady of the Night Court. You thought that she was just my mate, but she is my equal. She a high lady for the first time ever.
So, would you think it's fair to say that Rhysand's a feminist? That he perhaps invented feminism?
I don't think he invented it. I don't know.
I don't
Is
mean actually.
Is that how far behind they are?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear by the way that Tamlin reacts. Anyway.
We still got boomers in our time, so.
Tamlin's the original fucking boomer.
Tamlin's the boomer.
Like I said, what would you say your Goodreads 1 to 5 stars? How are you feeling at the end of this?
I don't remember how I rated the last one.
I think you gave it 3 stars.
Yikes. I'm gonna have to rate this one probably 3 stars as well.
Okay.
And here's my reasonings.
Tell me.
So, in terms of the plot of this book, I liked it more. but it was fucking 2 or 3 times as long, and...
You know what's not 2 or 3 times as long?
Is considerable length.
Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus. Do you want to watch that after this?
No.
We'll watch it after this. Cultural reset.
Yeah, but it was way too fucking long, and just like the first book, 50% of it could have just not existed, and then it would have been the same book, and it would have taken me half the time to read. It was a chore to get through. Like I said, she kind of writes... I don't know if I said this in the video last time, but she kind of writes like a senior in high school who's trying to fit a bunch of SAT words into a paragraph, but for 600 pages.
Okay.
So it was, yeah, like I said, it was just kind of a chore, but like when I get to the actual like plot points of it, like I said, I was kind of actually interested in what some of these things would look like visually. I think that it was more appealing to those parts of me. The parts that were interesting were definitely more interesting than the first book.
That's fair.
For those reasons, I think I'm gonna have to rate it the same because it was just too fucking long.
So, when it comes to your interest in the third book, would you say you were more interested back in the day in reading the second book, or do you think you're more interested now in reading the third book? Because I have to tell you, I was interested to read the second one, and I just kind of don't give a fuck about reading the third one at this point.
Maybe the opposite. Like, part of me is interested to know how the story ends, because I'm so far into it at this point, but also, how long is the third book?
Long.
Like, longer?
I don't know. It's written on Bible pages, so it's yeah, I don't know.
Roll them into a joint? Like joint paper thin?
Yeah, I don't smoke marijuana. I don't.
That's the thing that makes me not interested to read it. Is like how much of a chore it was to read this book. I'm afraid that reading the next book will be more of the same. Where like there will be so many points at which that I'm like, can we just fucking keep it moving with the story? I don't care that much about your continuous depression and inner struggle about killing 2
I want to
innocent
say
parents.
that
Like, I get that it's a struggle, but like try not to mention it every chapter if you could. That would be great.
I think the third book definitely has more plot. I don't know that it's a satisfying conclusion to the series, so I'm not really personally interested in reading the third book. If I had my say in what we would read next, I personally want us to read Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. If you guys are interested in seeing that, please let me know. Let me know.
That?
Oh, brother, you've got a big storm fucking coming. It's short, so I like that. It's like
I like that too.
It's like 250 pages. So
Ooh.
I know, sound nice. So I'm thinking that's probably what we're gonna do, but I would love to hear you guys' feedback in the comments down below. Let us know what you want us to read next.
Is the third worth reading?
I don't really want to read the third book, and if we do, it's not going to be the next book that we read, so let me know if you guys have interest in watching us read Shatter Me, because I feel like I have a lot to fucking say about that book that I think you would too. I think you would have a lot to say. Okay, that's fair. So, that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching. Love you guys so much, and until next time.
Until next time.
Alright.
You're lucky no one can see you're ugly.
Yeah.
Because it's inside.
Jesus Christ. I'm definitely gonna use that to promote this, so is that a nipple?